Who gets us started off? Austin. Austin, you got the 1-1 in a 2024 Superflex tight end premium rookie mock. Way too early, of course. Got to say that. So, Austin, who you got?
Yes, sir. If I have the chance to draft Marvin Harrison Jr. in any rookie draft, there's no way that I'm going to leave that draft without him. I'm pulling trigger right here at the 101 on Marvin Harrison Jr. And fellas, I'm running my card in. I got fresh ink on it still, and it says Marvin Harrison Jr. in size 72.5. It couldn't be any more obvious. The 101 should be Marvin Harrison Jr. in all format. That's how I feel. I think Marvin Harrison Jr. is in the conversation, at least, to be considered the greatest receiving prospect in the history of the NFL. Ooh. He is the safest pick in this draft. I believe he's safer than Caleb. He's absolutely safer than Drake May. I'll argue with anybody on that. And I think that he is safer than Caleb. That's how I feel about Marvin Harrison Jr. He is also the only Ohio State wide receiver to have multiple 1,000-yard receiving seasons, and he's going to be an early declare. It's kind of absurd, especially when you think about how many quality wide receivers that Ohio State has produced. He's going to be a top 5 draft pick. I firmly believe that. I think there's a higher chance that he's top 3 or closer to top 3 rather than top 5. January 15th is a big day. That's a final day for prospects with collegiate eligibility to declare for the 2024 NFL draft. And, that's just a date to monitor, considering so many prospects, of course, haven't declared quite yet. And, we're only in early December. Phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal improviser, Marvin Harrison Jr. That is, when the play breaks down, he is the quarterback's best friend, top tier tracking ability. I said that on the last pod. That is one of my favorite, maybe his best attribute, I would argue. 6'4", 205. Marvin Harrison was unanimously voted an All-American as a sophomore. 60% contested catch rate, 90.7 PFF grade, 36 explosive plays of 15 yards or more, which ranked number 1 in all of FBS. Marvin Harrison Jr. is the best player in this draft.
Matt, what are your thoughts here on taking Marvin Harrison Jr. number 1 and Caleb maybe number 2? I think essentially will be the pick here. What are your thoughts? I saw maybe Russell Clay the other day talking about how he's taking Marvin Harrison Jr. So it seems like becoming a little bit more popular to say that, and I guess I could sort of understand it. It seems like it is a little safe. There are starting to be questions about Caleb for whatever reason. I think it's just a too good, too long, not being surrounded by crazy talent like maybe Nabers and Penix have been. But what do you say here?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting play for maybe the long term, and you're betting on Harrison's ceiling while also simultaneously betting that Caleb Williams won't be what we think he is. And I don't think the differences are really going to be too far from the jump. I mean, I think Caleb is probably going to come in as the highest ever dynasty prospect in terms of Superflex. Mm-hmm. I think he could be slotted in there just ahead of Bijan, or where Bijan was going this year, I should say, because Bijan, for some reason, has slid, and I don't get it, but that's neither here nor there. It's a different subject.
Sure. But
yeah, I think Bijan, in some rookie drafts or in some startups was going as high as 110.
Correct.
In Superflex.
At least for us. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that I could see Caleb going in the 107 to 108 range in Superflex.
Yeah.
Because of the need for quarterback, right, especially in 12 plus team leagues.
Yeah, I think so. Go ahead. Yeah.
I don't hate it. I think it's definitely, like Austin said, I'm going to agree that I think Harrison is safer than Caleb Williams, because I think there's the certain dynamic to Caleb Williams that comes between his ears that we can't quantify, that he's been a little weird with this year, with like not wanting to talk to reporters. The crying thing, I don't give a shit about. You can cry all you want. That's fine. It just shows you have emotion. That's fine. I don't care. But I think that it's an interesting decision to make, and I can't say that I hate it.
Yeah, me neither.
I don't know that I would be able to do it myself, but I think you could probably make the argument. I'm not saying it's stupid, but I'm also not saying it's something that I would do. So, but at the same time, I think that it's just a quarterback. So
right.
I think it's just a quarterback, and I think immediately the value is higher on Caleb than it is going to be on Marvin Harrison Jr.
Yes, I would tend to agree there that in startups, Caleb will go higher than Marvin Harrison Jr. I think the value will be placed just because one quarterback scarcity a little bit here, and I feel like this year as much as ever we're going into this following year with a lot of question marks outside those top 7 or 8 quarterbacks. Now there is still some in that second and third round in startups, maybe even into the fourth, but then it dries up real quick. And Caleb has been generational and has a bunch of generational ability. But it would, I can get behind that Marvin Harrison could be a little safer and a more solid plays. He's going to come in his own right, be a top 3 to 5 wide receiver, and probably be a high second round pick as far as startup drafts go. So yeah, I mean it's certainly interesting, and I can't say that I can argue terribly hard about it. The problem with Caleb is it seems like he's most likely going to the Bears. The system and the coach, depending on who that is for the Bears, we've seen that screw up some quarterbacks long term. The wide receiver seems like, yes, of course, the right quarterback system, all that can really really blow him up to a whole nother level, especially a lot faster. But the quarterback can really, really get soured, and it'll take a while for Caleb to get soured. So you're insulated, I think, a good bit on either one of those players for losing value. But Bears and who's the coach? I can't imagine it's going to be Eberflus. I would assume that maybe it's Jim Harbaugh.
You have to think if they draft a quarterback, they're going to bring an offensive mind,
right?
You're going to bring in, you know what I mean? You could bring in, Bobby Slowick's probably going to get a job with the work he's done on CJ
Slowick
Stroud
and
Johnson,
yeah, the Lions,
for sure.
And maybe Lincoln Riley is a package deal says, hey, I'll come to the Bears with. But if it's somebody like Harbaugh, are you excited for Caleb, or does that detract a little bit?
I think it's just I think it's just a net neutral. I don't really think it does anything to me, but I also don't think it does anything. Like, I made a joke one time on Twitter and said that, yeah, Jim Harbaugh's a QB whisperer. He just whispers to all of his QBs, "You're not Andrew Luck."
Or Colin Kaepernick.
It crushed. It crushed.
Yeah. Austin, anything else before we move on to the second pick?
No, man, I'm thrilled to get Marvin at the 101. I'm very happy with it. And you should probably be ecstatic to land Caleb at the 102, not to spoil anything, but
Yeah, it's got to be the pick. It's got to be the pick.
Yeah, so Matt, 102.
Real quick, if I can, Austin, where do you have Harrison at in terms of your dynasty wide receiver rankings right now?
I don't think there's a world that exists where he's outside of the top 6.
Okay.
Right. And I'm sure the hot take, or according to Twitter, people probably have him 3, right behind maybe Chase and Jefferson. I think then he would be 3. But obviously right now, I think that you absolutely have to put AJ Brown and CeeDee Lamb in front of him. So at the absolute earliest, he's 5. And I'm not sure if I'm quite there as wide receiver 5 yet. I'm just saying, in my opinion, that's the earliest he should be. Those 4 receivers absolutely should be in front of Marvin Harrison.
Totally agree with you. 100% on board with you. I was just curious to see if I could get you to say that he was ahead of one of those 4.
Nope, not that dumb.
Okay. Hey, no, and there's nothing, and you can have an opinion. You can have an opinion whether it be right or, there's no right or wrong opinion. If you can back it up, then it's not dumb. But anyways, as Austin said, Caleb Williams has to be the 102. I would say that there's not a chance he makes it past the 102 in any draft.
Yeah.
I would say 95 times out of 100, he's going 1.
Yeah. Yeah. I could see some after the draft if for some reason people don't like the situation. Maybe even maybe that number goes up a little bit because they talk themselves out of it, and Marvin Harrison maybe he goes to the Bears as well. With Caleb, but I think at that point, then it doesn't. You're excited to have Marvin Harrison tied to Caleb Williams, whereas Caleb Williams might be if it's some scenario that you don't love as the coaching staff or whatever, maybe you're a little bummed. So, but I think that's
if Maserati Marv, oh God, awful.
Don't ends up in talk bad about Gus Johnson again on this podcast, though.
He was just weird during the Penn State games. He was just weird. I don't know what his deal was this year. I think he was just betting against him in all the games.
Maserati Marv.
I heard it 10 times. Probably because every time he caught the fucking ball, it was third down.
Oh, and it was just he's a backbreaker, man. Every time he needed, he's got you, Marv. That is.
But anyways, yeah. I mean, Caleb Williams has to be one too. Yeah. I mean, there's no way. There's no way.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll keep it moving here. I'm going to go Drake May at 3. I think, anybody in the top 3 to even, we could maybe even extend that to 4, but certainly the top 3 right now picks going into this is super excited. And there's even some people out there that are, Drake May over Caleb already, and that will start up and that will swell up in some circles. I'm going to stick with Caleb, but, May's got a lot of stuff to be excited about too. Not going to get super crazy on breaking May down because it's just, really, really great prospect, a little more prototypical as far as the QB look and build. I'd go Caleb, Marvin Harrison, May. I'm keeping, either one, any of those 3, I'm excited to get. So, and I don't think there's really much changing in that top 3 from now until we draft. So, anybody got anything else before we move on to pick 4?
No, I think that was a good pick. I think that was very sound. I'll take it away right here with the 104. I'm going to pull trigger on Malik Nabers. Woo! So I'm on the clock here again at the 104, and it feels like chalk at this point, right? I just think that now consensus is 100% in on Malik Nabers being the receiver 2 in this class early December, right? As we're in early December, I think that's what consensus believes. That's absolutely what I've believed, at least for comfortably at least a month now. Here's a player that it should be the first wide receiver off the board in most drafts, right? I'd say in most drafts, Marvin, of course he has to make things difficult for this kid and just take away the spotlight. It's that incredible wide receiver from LSU, Malik Nabers. I watch his tape. I see DJ Moore, man. I'm telling you, please pause this podcast, go watch a video of him running a route, catching the ball, watch the way his hips move. I promise you're going to see DJ Moore. I swear, they have to be brothers. They must be related. They look identical. He is great tape, by the way. I love watching Malik Nabers. And, people weren't thrilled last year with him as a sophomore because his inability in the red zone, right? 3 touchdowns. What did he do this year? He got back in the gym. He's grinding this offseason, and he just shut everybody up. 14 touchdowns in 12 games. Okay, so just stupid numbers, man. He's awesome. He shut up all the critics real fast. And I find touchdowns to be fluky. I don't get too worked up about it. But he, on top of those 14 touchdowns, he also dropped 1,546 yards to go along with that this season. This kid is so good. He's so talented. And I mean, he had a higher contested catch rate as a sophomore than Marvin Harrison Jr. It was 61.9%. Marvin's was 60%, right? And keep in mind, Marvin's 6'4", 205. Malik Nabers is 6 foot 200. Okay, so he can clearly play big in contested catch situations. Vertical speed was never a question with this kid. He ran a 4.44 according to himself in high school. So for whatever that's worth, right? But I fully expect him to run in the 4.3s during the NFL Combine. He's got strong hands. He's a good blocker. Actually, that would be one of the smaller knocks on him. I don't think he's a top tier blocker, but maybe it's because of his size. It doesn't bother me that much. I just wanted to point that out. And if there's one thing that you need to know about Malik Nabers, it's that he's the textbook definition of a playmaker. You just want to get the ball in this kid's hands. You want to get him in space. You better watch out. He had 552 slot snaps, 708 out wide for what it's worth. And I'm going to wrap it up real quick. I can't stress enough. The people need to know this about Malik Nabers. He is, I truly believe that this is the second and only other wide receiver aside from Marvin where there is not a world that exists where this player doesn't succeed at the next level in the NFL. And we'll discuss Rome, who I love. We'll talk Keon. We'll talk Igbuka and many other wide receivers. I just think that there's a much higher chance that those guys bust rather than these 2 receivers that we've already discussed. And this is the final thing I will say about Malik Nabers before we move on. I'm going to say this quickly because there's a lot. Nabers this season has more receptions, yards after contact, touchdowns, higher PFF grade, targets, first downs, missed tackles forced, yards per route, completion percentage, receiver rating, and 25 plus yard receptions than Marvin Harrison Jr. Like, yes, Marvin is still the 101, but Malik Nabers and Marvin Harrison Jr. feel bulletproof to me.
Yeah, I mean, I can't really disagree there. You know, there's plenty of times this year where he got the ball in Nabers' hands, and you're like, damn, I can't believe he scored from you know, kind of where that play started to where it ended. It's like Nabers just running down the field, or a big play from a spot where he got the ball, and it was like, oh yeah, it's going to be 5-10 yard gain, and then all of a sudden it's, you know, it is a big game. So, you know, fairly bulletproof prospect as well there. So, you know, if you're in the 1-1 to 1-4, I think even to 1-6 halfway through this draft, man, we got really, really solid players. Matt, who you got at 1-5 here?
I feel like every draft I'm ending up taking Rome Odunze. Just seems to be who I'm taking. Seems to be pretty comfortably slotting in with the wide receiver 3 spot here. Depending on the tight end premium, I think you could make a case for Bowers as soon as probably at this spot.
Sure.
If it's two versus
we're
one
going
and a
1.5
half
here. So
yeah, 1.5. I'm still going to lean the wide receiver. But I feel like I've talked about Dunze the whole time on every single one of these. One of the things I just saw earlier today was that he actually played through a punctured lung that he got in the end of September, and he played 8 games with a punctured lung. And in those 8 games, he had 49 receptions for 820 yards and 9 touchdowns.
Yeah. I mean, he's been my favorite wide receiver to watch this year. I mean, he's not, you know, I think he's probably firmly planted as the wide receiver 3 at this point, right?
Yeah.
I think there's not a whole lot of people who are taking him over Nabers. But, you know, I think you can make a case, I think, up there with either one of those guys. We've got an awesome, you know, top, you know, 3 wide receivers here who I think are all going to be hard pressed to be bust at the next level. I mean, same thing I said about Marv, where it's like every time they needed to play, you know, Penix would go to Rome and they'd get it, man. Whether it was him running a filthy route and burning you completely, or in the contested catch area in the red area. So
yeah, he was tied for the nation in contested catch percentage for people playing 50, or he was tied for the first in contested catches in NCAA.
Right.
With CMC's brother, actually.
And you know, there are certainly some players and statistics that support that being a contested catch savant is not a good thing because you're not separating. That is not the case with Rome.
No.
Rome can separate. Rome looks, you know, has a touch of Chris Olave with kind of the way he's navigating the field, except he's a whole nother human being.
6'3", 215.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you know, I'm not sure how fast Rome is going to run here, but I think he's plenty fast.
Yeah. I don't think he's going to be a burner, but I don't think he's going to run 4.6. So
yeah. And even if he does, I don't care. He moves so well.
I think he'll probably come in at the high 4.4s, low 4.5s, and no one's going to say a damn word about it.
Yeah, his prowess for being so smooth, body control, footwork is really, really good. So,
well, and those guys, you know what I mean? Those guys who aren't the speed merchants, we can see them be productive well into the latter part of their 20s. But then I guess you've got Tyreek Hill, who's going on 30, who is just tearing the league apart. So
there's only one of those.
Yeah. Is Tyreek going to retire in 2 years like he said, or is that just all garbage?
He said he is. He said he's going to go into porn.
Yeah.
What? He actually said that?
I heard him say that somewhere.
Oh, God.
He just got married, so that should go well. Anyway, pick 6. I'm going Brock Bowers. Not a ton to say here. We kind of Matt touched on it. I think you could flip flop these even in 1.5 if you wanted to. And 2, you might even be able to make the case as he's the 4th pick after the quarterbacks of Marvin Harrison with 2 points per reception. Brock is, you know, we've seen Trey McBride this season coming in and, you know, putting up with 1.5 even or 2. When you look at the numbers and you put those up against the top wide receivers, he's in the top like 5 of wide receiver points per game with the target share and the way he's been putting together games from a tight end premium perspective. So that's kind of what happens when a tight end can get the volume and be that good and be a deep threat and be a red zone threat as well, kind of be a little bit of a receiver hybrid. You know, you can easily put up, you know, higher. We saw Darren Waller in 1.5 point PPR that year that he crushed, basically, be right neck and neck with Devontae Adams putting up. So that's why, I am a firm believer in always drafting those high end tight ends in tight end premium. So Brock Bowers, just an absolute stud. We use generational and unicorn too much, I think, but truly does. He's been, the last couple games that you saw from Brock Bowers are not indicative of what Brock Bowers is. He's been a little gimped up. Go back and look at those games before he sustained the injury to get the full picture of Brock Bowers, and it's awesome. So Brock Bowers at 6. Austin, who you got at 7?
Casey, I'm stealing your guy here at 107. I'm taking Michael Penix Jr., and I'm kind of excited because this is my first time drafting Michael Penix Jr. in a mock. This is my first share of him. And here's what you need to know about Michael Penix Jr. Confidence was never the issue for this kid. And that really says a lot considering the fact that he had multiple season-ending injuries during his time at Indiana, 2 ACLs. I watched an interview of Michael Penix Jr. breaking down some film, some play action passes. And man, let me just be clear when I say this. He's got a very good grasp of the game. He is a good head on his shoulders. He knows how to read defenses. Adversity hits at any time, and you got to be ready for it. Penix absolutely was. He never quit. You know how hard these 2 ACL injuries were for him mentally, and then transferring. And now here he is leading the Washington Huskies to a perfect 13-0 record, the number 2 seed in the nation. I mean, goddamn, dude, let's clap it up for Michael Penix Jr., man. I am so happy for this kid, and he can throw off his back foot on the run. He's 6'3", 220 pounds, good size, 64 total passing touchdowns over the past 2 years, 17 interceptions. His time with the Washington Huskies, he's comfortably throwing for well over 4,000 passing yards back-to-back seasons with them, 5-0 against ranked opponents, 6 game-winning / clinching drives, a perfect 13-0 this season. He's just got a very nice collegiate resume, and I could see Penix Jr. being a top 10 pick. I also wouldn't be surprised if he was in between picks 10 and 20. The Raiders could pull trigger on him, the Saints, the Seahawks. Maybe even the Vikings. Look, man, let me just say this. I'm rooting for Michael Penix Jr. Kid's got heart. He's overcome so much. Now he's finally shining, and I am genuinely happy for him.
Yeah, it's interesting with Penix here. That I think there is a little bit of slide on Penix right now, and I'm not really sure why. In general, it seems like mock drafts have now pumped him back down to end of the first, maybe even into the second in some of these things, which is just I really, really don't understand. Listen, the only reason I can say that I can even give you a pass on saying you're out on Penix being a first round quarterback in the NFL is medicals. If you want to say, hey, we're worried about the medicals, I have no argument for you. That's pretty legitimate. He doesn't move around a lot anymore. He has been injured, but you saw him in that last Oregon game. If you watched it, he ran for a few. He is able to run. He's not a statue back in the pocket. He can move around, and man, he's so accurate. He's got plenty of arm strength. Yeah, he's a lefty, but maybe lefty can maybe even be an advantage because you don't see that a lot in the league. But in a system like Minnesota, every system I don't think is going to be for Penix. But in a system like Minnesota, or obviously you're seeing what Tua can do, but if he goes somewhere where Slowick maybe is the head coach, I think you can see Penix is tailor made for the right system in the NFL. You can't just jam him into a round hole into a square peg with him, which I think is a mistake that a lot of people make. You got to tailor your system to around what he does. Yes, he had some good receivers, but man, he started off so hot. He goes down the field really, really well. He attacks down the field, but then he'll read the defense and come back and just take what's there to keep moving the ball down the field. Yeah, did they get tied up into some close games here and there in division that maybe you thought were going to be a little bit bigger of blowouts? Yes, a couple of those were rain games. One of those games, Penix was sick as a dog, had the flu. But every single time he needed it, he fucking got it. And that's what I want to see when things aren't going right, and maybe the matchup isn't where you thought it was going to be, and maybe it's a little more of an advantage to, let's say, Oregon State or whatever, who, coming into this last Oregon game, they were going to blow them out because look at these opponents that they've played, common opponent, as they like to say. It was the same story with like Washington. Oregon had nothing for Washington. To say nothing, that's probably a bit aggressive, but Washington got them twice now. I don't know what else we needed to see. That was a 10-point spread. Vegas gets it wrong from time to time. I don't know what was going on. All of a sudden, it seems to be piling on Penix, and he could be sliding down. And listen, if you want to take Jayden Daniels over Penix in fantasy, 100% fine with it. You get a rushing floor. We like that. He's probably going to win the Heisman, maybe with Penix being right behind him. But Penix is out there winning ball games, and I think he's got a very pro-level approach to what he does week in and week out. So Penix has been my guy, but I could see him sliding down a little bit, but I see no reason why he shouldn't be a first-round draft pick. And I saw just so much hate after that last Oregon game on the Twitter machine, or the X rather, on Penix, and just nonsense. It just seemed like you're just making up reasons to be out on him. I don't know. Matt, anything before we move on to your next pick?
No, I was surprised looking at Penix about how little rushing he has. I guess my brain is just ingrained with that 2-point conversion from 2020 that I'm just assuming that Michael Penix Jr. is this uber mobile quarterback, but that's not his game.
Yeah.
And Casey, you brought up a really good point about him potentially falling, Michael Penix Jr. potentially falling due to injuries, like multiple ACL tears. But one thing I wanted to bring up really quickly is think about Deshaun Watson, man. He tore his ACL back in 2014. I think he was a freshman at Clemson. And then he tore it again 2017, I believe, his first season in the NFL. So, again, like similar situation, 2 torn ACLs from both of these players and, a relatively similar timeline. So just something to keep in mind.
Right. An injury can happen at any point with a core. We've seen that all year this year. They're protected as hell, and anything can happen. So, Matt, who you got at 1-8 here?
Taking Egbuka again.
Woo! Seems like he's maybe fallen a little bit too, but I don't know that it's necessarily his fault. Maybe just some people are coming up.
I think the fact he's been banged up this year as well too, that he's kind of been I don't want to say forgotten, but he's kind of been. He hasn't been this sexy. He hasn't been the sexy guy this year, so he's just been kind of just like. He didn't take the stage like Keon Coleman did, or I'd probably say Keon Adunze. Yeah, but Egbuka's probably still going to be a first-round draft pick. I don't foresee a reason why he's not, as long as the medicals come back okay. But I don't see a reason why he's not a first-round draft pick. Yeah,
no, I like everything.
Just consistent slot receiver. He's probably going to have to play more slot than not in the NFL. But most of the NFL is running 11 personnel most time anymore, anyways. Unless you go play for the Ravens, but.
Yeah, no, I think I'm not worried about him at all. I think he's a very good receiver.
I'm looking forward to digging really into his tape from last year, because like I said on the last one of these drafts we did, it looked like once that JSN went down last year, it looked like Egbuka was going to take over as the wide receiver 1 there at Ohio State, and then Marv just decided that he was just the alpha dog there. Mm-hmm. But Egbuka still had 1,100 yards last year, so it's not like he was just played second fiddle. He may have played second fiddle, but that second fiddle is probably close to 1B than it was 2. So still a very good player, and crazy what's going on at Ohio State. They may lose their top 7 pass catchers.
Yeah, and then I read something where they have the most ridiculous trio coming in behind those
exactly.
guys. So,
Exactly. It's just absurd. It's absurd. They're basically going to have a whole new offense next year. They're going to have a new quarterback, 2 new running backs, their top 3 receivers are all leaving. I'm assuming that Stover is going to be. I think Stover is draft eligible as well too. So. Yeah. They could have entirely new skill positions at Ohio State, and they're still going to be stupid good.
Crush, yeah.
They're probably going to bring in. They're probably going to bring in Cam Ward, or they're going to bring in Dante Moore. Yeah, they're going to bring in Dante Moore or Cam Ward, and they're just going to be fine. They're just going to continue to crush.
Yeah, and maybe Harbaugh goes away for them.
I think. I think that seems likely at this point, but I mean,
right.
What do I know? But anyways, yeah, Igbukwe, I mean, I've seen Coleman going over him. My Coleman concerns are what you brought up earlier about Adunze with the separating. Yeah. I've been burned too many times.
What the red flag is right now.
I've been burned too many times by these guys who can't separate. You know what I mean? I don't need N'Keal Harry 2.0.
Yeah. Well, I don't think he is, but
I don't think he is either. But again,
that has been the knock that's surfaced here on over the last couple of weeks of people being kind of a little more out on him.
What was going on at Michigan State?
Yeah. I don't know. All I know is what I saw on the field with Florida State was a whole lot of fun.
Sure. Yeah. Absolutely.
So, all right. At 1-8, I'm going Jayden Daniels here. Like I said, if you want to slide Jayden Daniels up where Penix was and move Penix down a little bit because of the rushing upside, I have absolutely no problem with that. That's the way I want to play fantasy for the most part. We had been mentioning Jayden Daniels in the last couple drafts we did and said that we could see him up here and here we are, and I think he's probably going to even climb even higher. He's going to win the Heisman. Penix could come out and have a great showing and beat Texas and then have a good game against Alabama or Michigan, and maybe people's feelings will change, or could go the opposite way where Penix just is fine and people are just even more and more out where, God forbid, he gets nicked up. But Daniels is 6'4", 210. He'll be 23 in the draft process, I believe. So, oh God. But obviously started at Arizona State and then transferred here to LSU. But he's first in yards per attempt with 11.5, third in yards with 3,811, first in TDs with 40, and then you can add 10 more on the ground to go along with 1,250 more rushing yards, and seventh in adjusted completion percentage at 79.9. So really just having a spectacular year. Seemingly the big Heisman push right now, probably going to win the Heisman, which I think will help even, a little bit more of the common dynasty person to even get him even further on their radar and move him up. Like I said, the only advantage Penix have is those standalone games. People could get hyped up if he just puts up, 404 in those games, which is possible. So, like I said, Jayden Daniels here coming in at 1.9. I think he's going to end up maybe moving up a little bit more by the time this process is over because, A, we need quarterbacks, B, we're playing Superflex, and C, we love the rushing upside of those, top flight quarterbacks, and he's been, amazing this year. So hats off to Jayden Daniels. He was always really good, but just keeps taking steps forward and looked unbelievable on the field. 7-3 or whatever it was, whatever the record was. Had 3 losses, I believe. Take that for what it is. But he's putting up damn near Joe Burrow like numbers down there at LSU. Especially if you add in what he's doing on the ground, it's
some of them are better if you add in the rushing work.
Right. So
I saw a graphic a couple weeks ago that was comparing Bo Nix, Burrow, and Jayden Daniels, and Jayden Daniels was beating Burrow in most of the categories, which is crazy because Burrow was a slam dunk Heisman.
Mm-hmm.
Good. But I think Jayden Daniels should be there now. It should be the slam dunk Heisman, and if he's not, there's something wrong with college football. But
you could
we already saw an undefeated Power 5 school conference champion get not put in the playoffs. So
well, that's neither. I don't have time to discuss that. We need to get out of here. So Austin, did you have anything? And then you're up at the 110 spot.
Oh, I think you guys touched on everything very well. I don't really have much to add to it. Right here at the 110, man, if there was ever a player in the history of the NFL besides DK Metcalf to get overhyped because of the highlight reels, it's probably this kid. It's Keon Coleman at the 110. And I'm not saying he's overhyped. I'm not saying DK's overhyped. I'm just saying I'm infatuated with their highlights. Like if you have a minute, go on YouTube, go watch some Florida State Keon Coleman highlights, man. It's just, you ask yourself, is Marvin Harrison actually better than him? And yes, of course he is, but his tape is crazy, man. I'm sorry, I want to reword that. I shouldn't say his tape is crazy. His highlights are crazy, right? Yeah. I want to be clear when I say that. This is a kid that I think he's far from polished. I feel very comfortable saying that. Mm-hmm. But however, I think that he is a man amongst boys. You watch his tape and you see how quick he gets in and out of his routes. And it should be illegal for him to do that at his size. Like, yes, he should be a better separator. I know you guys touched on that earlier. I agree. That was one of the talking points I wanted to, mention. Late hands, I would argue, is one of his best attributes. Maybe his best. He just understands the wide receiver position. He understands how it's supposed to be played. 6'4", 215. That's why I said he's a man amongst boys. Mm-hmm. You watch him. He just looks like he was like that kid in 5th grade that's just way too big for 5th grade, dude. Yeah. Like how, like he's in high school or college. Yeah. Like why is he in 5th grade right now? But he's just got this special blend. Keon Coleman has this special blend of physicality and athleticism. It makes him an ideal X prospect, just a big X wide receiver in the NFL. Body control is something that I think highly of when I think of Keon Coleman.
Yeah. For sure.
Again, I think he has very good hands. 11 touchdowns in 12 games is one of the bigger talking points. Everybody knows that. Dude is he's a beast in the red zone. I mean, he is tough to guard. Keon could be a mid to late first. That's kind of where I expect him to go in the actual NFL draft. I'd love to see him be a Buffalo Bill, man. I think that's a great fit.
Yeah, I think it seems to be staying in the first. There seems to be some concerns kind of rising up, kind of appears and disappears, and then some contested catch stuff. But the punt returns, that he has made some really good plays. I don't know that I'm terribly afraid of Keon Coleman right now, but I think I have tempered expectations a little bit from maybe where I was in the beginning of the season, but. Again, we also got robbed of some of these last games with Florida State, and potentially Florida State even moving forward because their quarterback was injured, to see him get a little bit of that national spotlight kind of game there. So Keon Coleman coming in at 110. Matt, who you got at 111?
I will take the first running back, and I will take Travion Henderson.
Okay.
So, guy whose tape popped off when he was a freshman, was banged up a little bit last year, was banged up a little bit this year, but seems to have turned the corner and has been he's scored every game he's played except for week 1 so far. So didn't have his best game against Michigan, but has been productive in the other games. He would have broken that 20 reception threshold had he not missed 3 weeks. So. He did catch 27 balls as a freshman, so that's what I'm going to take a look at there. I know he can do it. He's done it before.
Right.
I think he kind of fits the bill as the most complete running back in this class. I don't know if he's the best pure runner, but I think he, to me, is the best complete running back, and I'm going to hope that he ends up somewhere. I don't think there's any first-round running backs in this class. I think he's probably a second-round guy, which is fine. There's no Bijan in this class. There's not a Jahmyr Gibbs either, I don't think. But I think Travion could come in and finish as an RB2 his rookie year, and I wouldn't be overly surprised there. So I think someone who could come in and be productive and definitely be the lead dog in a committee. But I think we've kind of seen, for the most part, the workhorse running back outside of Saquon and James Conner basically disappear. Yeah, but I think he's a safe pick at 5'10", 215. So, he's got the size, he's got the pass catching. If you're interested to take a look at his pass blocking, his grades were good his freshman year and this year. So, per PFF. So, things I want to take a look at there. He can pass block, he can pass catch. Someone's going to come in and score points rather than have to wait for a roll to open up like we've seen with like Kendre and Roshan.
Right.
I think someone who could come in and be productive right from the jump.
Yeah, he seems like he's going to mix in the second and third round potentially. Just some injuries have really slowed him down here. And then he had some spurts in this year where it looked like Travion was kind of back. Didn't really pop off in the Michigan game too much, but very, very fun prospect there. No Bo Nix or J.J. McCarthy there for you?
I know that we were talking about. I'm not taking J.J. McCarthy. I think he's going to get overdrafted. He's just going to be overdrafted. He's just going to get overdrafted. He plays on a very good team. He's a good game manager. He's like he's like Ryan Tannehill without the rushing upside.
Mm-hmm.
So I think he's going to get overdrafted because he played on a very good team.
Yeah, I'm not drafting JJ McCarthy either.
And Bo Nix, we were talked about it on the live stream we did on Friday night, but I didn't really see anything he did on Friday night that came away where I was like, what? I mean, he's had a great season, but I mean, I don't know.
Seems like he can manage a game for you too, and take some shots.
I think he's got that rushing upside too.
Yeah,
so
JJ and him seem like, take your pick.
I'd rather have Bo's rushing upside than JJ's.
Both can make the big boy throws. It's no slight on those guys. I'm just kind of out on both of them a little bit. I'm not really terribly interested.
I think Bo will end up going in the first. First of a definite real draft. I don't know if McCarthy will. I've seen him as high as like 106, which just
crazy.
Made me laugh.
Crazy.
So
no thanks.
No, not even close. Who knows how many quarterbacks we could see go in this first round. I mean, If you told me there was 6 right now, I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, we shall see. Seems like the NFL has reined it in a little bit though, so we'll see. We'll see what JJ looks like against Bama here. Be interesting. I'm gonna, assume that look like he has kind of look, make some good throws and be able to manage the game.
Well, yeah, that's the whole thing. He's got 2 great running backs he can hand the ball off to. He doesn't really have to do too much. He plays behind a very good offensive line. Good
corners for Bama. Okay, wide receivers for Michigan.
Yeah, you have what's his face, Roman Wilson.
Yep,
Roman Wilson.
And then they have another guy who is, I think, is going to end up being a pretty high draft pick. Maybe Lively or I don't know what his name is.
Blake?
Huh? I'm not sure. I'm drawing a blank on the name right now, but they have 2, and I like Roman Wilson. He's fine, decent player. But all right, well, so the last pick, I got the last one. I'm going Troy Franklin here. Switched it up. Didn't take JJ or Nix in this. Like Nix had a good year. We just talked about JJ. He's not really for me, not doing it for me. I think you could have stuck a bunch of guys in here. All 3 of the Texas players could have went in here. Jatavion Sanders, tight end premium here. He arguably has maybe been the best wide receiver on their team throughout this season, and he was on the tip of my tongue on this pick. Worthy or Mitchell, I think all could have went here. Unfortunately, Brooks got hurt at the end of the season. We'll see kind of where he goes. So Ewer seems like he's going back. So, not in the discussion here either. You could have went Braylon Allen, I think. A couple other potential running backs in the mix here, as well as some wide receivers. But I went Troy Franklin, 6'3", 187, projected 4.35, 82 receptions. That's good for 17th. 1,383 yards. That's 5th overall. 14 TDs. That's tied for 2nd. 3.32 yards per route run. I believe that was 3rd overall. 538 yak. That was good for 16th overall, as well as the 16th highest graded wide receiver in PFF with a 17.1 yards per reception. So pretty fast player here. Not overly huge, but a very quick, fast, good body control. Made a lot of big plays for the Ducks down the road here. So wanted to give Troy Franklin a little love in this mock because I think, he's been being mocked around the first round as well. And a lot of explosives potentially coming out of Troy Franklin. Unfortunately got hurt in that Oregon-Washington game. So, we didn't get to see maybe, him and Rome kind of going blow for blow potentially. Washington also has some other wide receivers in McMillan and Polk, who were pretty highly regarded coming into this year, suffered some injuries, as well as, I don't know if you guys have anybody else that you want to mention before we close this thing out, but we are going to do a round 2 here, and we will throw that out here for you at some point. So as we're closing up shop, you guys got any names that you want to for sure get mentioned here? Matt?
I feel like the running backs are going to slide. I feel like there was some guys who were coming in here who you were pretty high on. I know we talked about it last time, but Raheem Sanders came into the season. Same with Braylon Allen.
Yeah, Sanders is back. He went the portal.
Who's that?
Sanders.
Sanders is in the portal.
Yeah.
Missed that. Well, I mean, it doesn't mean he still can't declare. So yeah, it doesn't mean he still can't declare. So
yeah, I like Marks. I liked him a good bit.
Does anybody know if the kid from Oklahoma State is draft eligible? Ollie Gordon.
I'm not sure, but he's been good.
And the Oregon State was just going to say that. Yeah.
I like Devin Neal for Kansas. So
I think Neal's next year. I think we did.
No, I think he's eligible. I think he had the wrong thing on PFF, but I saw it.
Okay.
Austin, you got anybody you want to throw out there before we get out of here?
I got a few names, but I really want to save them for round 2, man.
All right,
I'm excited.
perfect.
I'm excited to talk about these prospects.
We
got a lot more. I would say pretty high quality prospects remaining. So let's save it for the next episode, and let's get the FF out of here, fellas.
Let's do it. Hop over onto the Patreon. We're about to head over there with Big D. Appreciate you guys. 5-star review, subscribe so they can get that second round. We're going to keep doing more of these. Not like they've been changing up. We got about to start another startup draft with rookies, so that'll be in a couple weeks. If you're a Patreon, you can get in those. We will open that up to the public later on, but right now it's all Patreon all the time. We're going to be doing plenty of mocks. We're going to be building our ADP for the offseason, all that jazz over in, and of course the Discord, podcast guys, 5-star reviews, T-shirts at Revelry Brew Co., all that jazz. Very much appreciate you guys, and we'll catch you next time. Peace.